Welcome back, everyone. Today we are taking a deep dive into a fascinating topic, the connection between two of ancient Europe's most prominent groups, the Celts and the Germans. And lucky for us, we have some pretty amazing insights thanks to the writings of Strabo. You might say he was kind of like the ancient world's most dedicated travel blogger.
Ah, I like that. He was an amazing writer. Yeah, Strabo really got around. I mean, he traveled all over the known world, documenting different cultures and peoples. His work gives us such a valuable window into ancient Europe, especially when it comes to understanding the Celts and the Germans.
And one thing that Strabo points out is how these groups were practically neighbors.
Right.
The Celts primarily west of the Rhine, and the Germans mostly to the east. Though Strabo does make a point of saying that the Germans were expanding into Celtic lands. But speaking of the Rhine, it wasn't just some random river, was it?
No, not at all. The Rhine was a huge geographical boundary in ancient Europe, often marking the dividing line between different cultural spheres and even empires.
So on one side you had the Celts, known for their amazing metalwork and fierce warriors. And on the other side you had the Germans, who were more agricultural and less unified politically. But what I find really interesting is that Strabo noted some physical differences between the groups.
Oh, yeah.
He describes the Germans as taller, fairer, and even uses the word savage to describe them.
Well, that term savage is definitely loaded, isn't it? You know, it really reflects the Roman perspective of the time. And it's crucial to remember that Strabo, while a sharp observer, was still writing from within his own cultural framework.
Right.
What he might have seen as savage could have just been different customs and ways of life that he wasn't used to.
Makes you think about how much perceptions shape our understanding of history, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
But here's where things get even more intriguing. Strabo had this theory about where the name Germans came from, and it's connected to the word genuine.
That's right. Strabo believed that the Romans viewed the Germans as the original Celts, you know, the most authentic version.
Like the OG Celts.
Exactly. And so he thought that the name Germani might have come from the Roman word for genuine. It's a fascinating theory that makes you wonder about how names and labels shape our understanding of different groups throughout history.
It really is. It's like someone coming up to your group of friends and calling you the originals, and suddenly everyone looks at you differently.
Right.
So while Strabo may not have been spot on with everything, he gives us a really valuable glimpse into how these groups were perceived back in the ancient world.
Definitely. And, you know, his writings suggest that the relationship between the Celts and Germans was more complex than we might think. They weren't totally isolated from each other. They interacted, influenced each other, and maybe even shared some common ancestry.
It's been said that Strabo's work, Geography, was essentially an encyclopedia about the known world.
Yeah, his geography is incredible. And it's amazing how much detail he goes into about all sorts of things. Like, he doesn't just talk about the people. He covers the geography, the climate, the economics, even the politics of different regions.
And he traveled so extensively to gather all this information. I mean, imagine traveling around the ancient world without cars, trains, or planes.
I know, right? It's mind-blowing. It must have taken him years, maybe even decades, to complete his work. He really dedicated his life to it.
This deep dive has made me think a lot about how we define and label cultures.
Yeah.
Both in the past and even now in the present.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important point to consider. You know, if even the Romans, who were known for having pretty strict ideas about civilization, could see connections between groups that seem different, like the Celts and Germans, then maybe we should challenge ourselves to look beyond simple labels, recognize how fluid cultural identities can be across history.
That is a fantastic point to end on. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.